Okay, welcome to the PAC podcast on Saturday, 13th of June 2020. I'm Tristan, here with Nick and Lawrence, my co-hosts. And today we're going to welcome Joe, who is a good friend of Nick's from a very long time back, I've heard, and who, I'm not sure, you're involved in various protests, is that right, Joe? Different kinds.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've just come back from Uxbridge to stop HS2. I've got a bad back. I'm just back for a couple of days, but you just go up there. It's like a cross between Animal Farm and Animal House. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah, sure.
It's like the pigs are taken over. You know what I mean? But no, it's not that bad. Well, I hate them, but you know what I mean. But I won't say that.
So, just for people who don't know, can you explain what HS2 is?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, HS2 is a railway. They're building through about 108 ancient woodlands. It's a big runway in the middle of Britain. It's a pointless money pit. 2 years ago, they said it's going to cost over 100 billion. Now the government virtually admits it's going to cost over 100 billion. So it's going to cost about 150 billion, I say now. They still ain't started yet. They're doing the groundworks. They're just about they just got the last week. I was there about 2 months ago before lockdown, and we was in a squat. But the national eviction team took the squat, but I'd already come back here and got stuck here. But we were stopping all the drills and all that going into Harville Road, and they're going to drill through London's aquifer, which does 22% of London's water. They've got all the drill bits in now with no opposition at the gate. It's unbelievable. You know what I mean? They got this national eviction team. They like grab you in headlocks and choke you out and put their knees on your back and things like that, and pressure points and all that. But I haven't had the pleasure of it yet. But that's why I wanted to get a bit fit before I went down there again. But they're ready to go now. Exactly now, on the 22nd, they're going to make a decision whether or not to occupy. To take the bit where at the end of, they've taken the whole of Harville Road, they've stopped anyone going down it except one bloke, and they have to give permission. They've cut down all the forest on the left, and we're at the back at Hillingdon Outdoor Activity Centre, and we've got people in trees, people in tunnels, people in lock-ons in the ground, but I mean, no one's down there at the moment, because I think they've all sort of gone on holiday. There's only a few around it, but now they've taken Denham about a mile away across the lake, where another bit of woodlands, and they're cutting down there illegally, definitely illegally, because you know what I mean. It's something in law, but they have to take a more green. If there's a greener, more greener route, they have to take it, and they haven't. And they're just cutting chains down. But they've retaken half of it, and there's people up a tree now waiting. So they're all split between there and about a mile away. And the others are all gone up to the other sites. So like, it's not many people on our one, but it goes through the court on the 22nd if they're going to take our one, and they're going to have a lot of trouble. There's going to be people there for about at least a week. You know what I mean? Just a bit
big corporations.
Good, yeah.
So the big corporations trying to expand the railway line. Is that correct? Basically.
Yeah. It's the government basically. It's corporations, obviously, Tories, but. Yeah, it's the government, and they're doing it. It's just a vanity project, and it's going to cost 150 billion pounds minimum. There's no doubt about it at all.
What's the span of the railway? Where's it starting and finishing?
I think it starts Euston and goes up to Birmingham. But there's at Old Oak. I think it's Old Oak. There's going to be a terminus where you have to go to the terminus at the top of London. Just to get the railway, it's ridiculous. By the time it starts, you have to slow down again. You know what I mean? You're not even going full speed for very long anyway.
So the point that's why you're protesting it, because you think it's not even worth having. It's like a waste of money and resources, basically.
Oh yeah. I mean, I went down to Euston. We started another rebellion in called HS2 rebellion. We're doing it in Euston as well. Their headquarters. They're going to cut down all the trees outside the station. For some reason, I don't even know why HS2 are, but they are, and they're going to be have a lot of trouble doing that, you know. But yeah, I'm sort of part of Kingston Extinction Rebellion. There was a couple down there. Was it a bloke called Chris? You probably know him. I won't say his second name. But he started it with Charlotte in that Kingston Environment Centre, and we was going to do We was going to block Kingston Bridge just before lockdown, but I thought, yeah, a spicy action at last. I was like, come on. And then that was lockdown. Like, so it's all just sending letters, you know what I mean? That's all it is. But Chris, last week, he went down to Horse Hill in Surrey, where they're drilling for oil, and he jumped over the gates with another bloke from Kingston. Chris is from New Malden, and they went over and they jumped on top of it and stopped production for the day. He's got to go to court about that. But things are getting interesting. And there's other actions planned, I think. In Kingston, it's going to be don't know how to say. What's it called again? I'll come to me. It's where the university grounds are. What's that called? That big area.
Penman Road.
Yeah, around there. Yeah, it's called. Does it not? What's it? I can't remember the name. Anyway, it's just past there, going towards down the river. It's a bit of wasteland sort of thing. What's it called?
I know. Yeah, I know where it's like allotments and all that.
You mean the Hogsmill River, or is that just a river?
No, it's like I know the name. Seething Wells.
Seething Wells.
Yeah.
Seething Wells. That's going to be. Well, we'll see what happens. There's going to be something happening there within a couple of weeks, I think, definitely, yeah. But that's about it, really.
Well, it's interesting. Is it reasonable to suggest that the lockdown is an opportunity for the government to push through these money-making schemes while telling everyone to stay at home and be afraid of the virus? And, in the meantime, they're still pushing through these plans to make other Tories more money. Where at the end of the day, the HS2, and the same thing with a third runway at Heathrow, the majority of people don't believe in it, and it's not going to benefit the vast majority of people.
Yeah, that's exactly what they've done. But that's how that. When I was in the squat, like for 5 weeks before lockdown, we didn't let a single vehicle in. We wouldn't let security in, right? And then lockdown came, and they got all these net security guards, and then they just had free reign to go in there now. You know what I mean? It's like we didn't let anyone in. For 5 weeks, we said no way. You know what I mean? We just let security guards that show their passes. We wouldn't let any vehicle in, But now it's just they got a free reign because I've got it on video. They've got some bloke, I know, they got him behind. They pulled him behind the fence. And they've got him in a pressure position, like hog-tied, but not hog-tied. But his arms and a knee on the back, facing the ground for 20 minutes. The police turn up.
There's laws that allow police to do that as well, and we know now.
They're not police. They're National Eviction Team.
Oh, right, that's different. Well, they're not supposed to do that anyway. It's enforcing. Yeah, not right.
Yeah, but I've got it on video, and he got 30 hours in the cells, and the Bindsman's the protesters' lawyer didn't turn up, and then he said, right, I'll have to have the court lawyer. They'll have to have the police station lawyer just to get out, and they let him out. Nothing happens. That's what they keep doing. They keep taking you in, don't charge you, just to get you away. The police are, I think they're getting kickbacks. Because someone said there's a company that's connected to HS2 and I won't say which police force. You know what I mean? But what can you do, Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, Yeah,
so
how many people are in your group who are protesting this site then?
Well, on the Hillingdon bit, I mean, there's around the entrance at Gate 3, there's about 1-2 blokes living sort of thing, and on the end, virtually in tents on the entrance, and one out bit is at the moment. I mean, there should be about 30 or 40, but they dwindled the numbers. They're going to come back from. You know what I mean? It's not worth sitting in the rain until the court date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Get a few donations of food, but mostly the food is skipping. You go and have a look in the skips behind supermarkets. Unbelievable! Like you're getting smoked salmon, you're getting pigeon. You know what I mean? They're getting food better than anyone else. Seriously, honey,
pigeon.
Everything. Getting, I mean, we're not getting one packet of sandwiches. You're getting like 100 packets of sandwiches. You know what I mean?
The wastage from supermarkets is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very interesting because I think I'm familiar a little bit with this stuff because I know, for example, one of Lawrence's bandmates is in Extinction Rebellion. Is that right?
He's involved with Extinction Rebellion. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for what you guys are doing. I participated in the one in the protests last summer, occupying Waterloo Bridge, Parliament Square, and I thought the approach was really good, very well orchestrated.
Was it quite peaceful?
Completely peaceful.
Peaceful, yeah.
It was about music. It was about you know, standing up for what we believe in.
Right, great. Well, that brings us to the next point, which is that obviously this came about, Joe, as a result of us, the PAC, who are like, I'll tell you a bit about us if you don't know much. Basically, we're like a loose arts collective. We've got like a lot of people who have come to like our little events and stuff like last year. So some are reasonably large sized, I guess. The history of it is that we want to raise awareness of mental health in relation to the arts. That's very important to us. Like, I mean, because Nick and me know a lot of people who have struggled with that. I have Asperger's, which is quite different, as you probably, if you know much about it, it's like quite unusual. And Lauren as well has a lot of like understanding and sympathy for these things, and a lot of awareness about music. I think we all have.
Yep, it's a passion of mine for sure.
So the PAC came about as a result of that. I mean, so what we're doing with our podcast is we want to like explore every avenue of life in all different ways and really like elevate people through that. So that's just thought I'd let you know that. And thank you for coming on board. It's nice to have you on board.
I thought you'd be an interesting guest, Joe, because you've been actually, as long as I've known you, you've been involved in lots of protests, and we've been on marches and rallies and stuff before, involved heavily into the anarchist punk scene.
And music being
and
one.
Music as well. Joe was a drummer years ago when I first met you.
Oh, were you, mate? Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, well, we won't go to that. But I done one gig, but I decided to give up my career after the West Ham fans invaded the stage and started to shag a girl on there, but the drum kit. But you know what I mean? And 3 songs it was. Yeah, scared me off at 14 years old.
The hammers, mate. Yeah.
So before we go into the main questions, I'd like to ask Joe, what's your general relationship with like music and the arts generally? Do you involve it a lot in your sort of activities around protests and all this stuff, or how do you see music in relation to that, and how do you use it?
Well, I personally don't play guitar and all that, but I do see it. They make up loads of songs and that. They've always got a guitar around the fire, and someone joins the jams in. You know what I mean? They usually do that instead of having the music on. You know, I'm not really a musician. You know what I mean? Well, I haven't tried for a long time. You know what I mean? So couldn't say much on it.
Well, I think music goes great with a protest because obviously people are angry, people want to make a point.
Yeah.
But music can help facilitate the vibe so people feel like this is a really positive thing, you know?
So what music would you say has influenced you and your sort of politics throughout the years, Joe?
Yeah.
I'd say Crash, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know them. Is that like a punk band or?
Yeah, it is a punk band.
Yeah,
anarchist punk band.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like the lyrics. I don't know how he knows all the lyrics. Just goes on and on, don't they? Just ages on. How he remembers all that, I do not know. Like, but Dead Kennedys, definitely. I mean, Dead Kennedys. He could play one of their songs. It's still relevant.
Here we are, Joe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
we went to see him, didn't we?
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and the lyrics to Dead Kennedys are still, like you say, still poignant today, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
You listen to Police Truck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
I know that. Well, I mean, I'd say although things have changed, clearly there's a lot of progress still needs to be done. I mean, because all this sort of protest music was big in the 80s and 90s and probably before there as well. Back in the 60s with the Vietnam War, it was happening too, wasn't it? So, but I was going to say Sepultura, who I'm very big into, they also covered no, they didn't cover the Kennedy song, but they co-wrote a song on one of their albums with Jello Biafra, I think he's called. Is that his name? Biafra?
Jello Biafra.
Guy and Dead Kennedys, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a song with him called, I think, Biotech is Godzilla or something on Chaos AD. Yeah.
Sounds like one of his songs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, I thought it's funny because, like, I guess, like, with, I'll move on to the questions, basically. So, The first question we had for this podcast is, what kind of impacts on society do you feel can be made either through protest songs or social commentary as expressed in any of the arts? So that's the question to everybody, but obviously we'll start with Joe. How do you feel about that?
I didn't know. Well, yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I go to Nick for now, and then I'll think of something.
Cool.
Well, I kind of grew up when everyone else at my school was kind of listening to sort of new romantic stuff and cheesy pop. I was listening to obviously a lot of ska music, Madness and the Specials and stuff, but also I was heavily into punk, a lot of American punk like Dead Kennedys, Millions of Dead Cops, DOA, and all those sort of bands, and then the English sort of crash bands, Flux of Pink Indians. And they were all protest songs, and that spoke more to me than anything else. You know, there's 10 million love songs, but a lot of the bands I were into had their own independent labels, and there was no major distribution. It was all done through little outlets, or buying tapes, or 7-inch singles at gigs. And all those songs, and you know, we went to loads of conflict gigs. We were at the conflict gig, Joe, weren't we, at Surbiton when there was a riot?
Yeah. I was going to say, but all those bands, but the local scene, there was quite a few. I mean, there was that band called Error of Judgment, weren't there? They were quite good, but not.
They were good, mate. That was my first band. I was a drummer in that band.
Was that a local punk band at the time? Because I never heard of them. And I actually have heard of them, I think, from somewhere. I don't know. Were they actually quite...
Yeah, you would have, because it was the first band I ever played in. We were like a sort of a crappy punk band.
Okay. Oh, you were in the band. Were you playing guitar, I assume?
No, I was playing drums.
Oh, you've done both guitar and drums, haven't you? Yeah, and bass as well.
And the band was called Error of Judgment, yeah?
Yeah.
And I've got a recording I found which was lost, of all the local punk bands on tape, which I gave to someone to look after, and 40 years later he gave them back. Which was really good of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
After being on it for 40 years. And I've just got them actually, so I'm threatening you with that, Dick Markham.
Yeah, I'll come out and listen to them. Joe.
Yeah, you're on there. Error of Judgment, NMBD, Maniac, Anathema, they're all local bands. What else is there? There's Fungus, Baz the Poet.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
Who else was there? There was more than that. When there Frogs.
Throbs, yeah. What was James's girlfriend at the time? She was in the band, wasn't she?
Sex with Sharon.
Sex with Sharon. Menace Dancers,
yeah.
The name of the band was Sex with Sharon.
Yeah.
That's quality, mate. Yeah. Sounds like there was an abundance of rebellious music at that time.
So Joe, you're also involved with Class War, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm not anymore. No.
So what happened there?
I am Class War New Malden, yeah, but I'm not involved with Class War as such. No, not anymore.
No,
it's a long. It's not a long story. It's just like I think the woman from Class War was drunk and she starts abusing me on the Facebook, and then I start saying you done this, you done that. I said, well, you weren't even there. So what are you talking about? And then I'm getting all these bloody messages on Facebook and all these people. Class War New Malden, there's nothing to do with us. They are sexist, racist, and all this. I thought, well, you weren't even there. Do you know what I mean? And then I was getting all these threats and all that. And I was like, oh, I can't bother. So I don't have nothing to do with them. But I'm not the only person. Since she took over from Ian Bone, sort of thing, because he's got Parkinson's, hasn't he, Ian Bone of Class War? But since she's sort of taken over, there's loads of people who are just going, oh, I have fucking nothing to do with them. You know what I mean? It's like it's that Professor Lisa McKenzie who does Sky and RT and that. Like, she's on my Facebook list, but like she's a friend of one of my friends in South London. But like she doesn't want anything to do with them. You know what I mean? It's just like she get, you know what I mean? Just all mouthy. You know what I mean? It's just like stirring shit up all the time. So no, I don't have anything to do with them. I am Class War New Malden, yeah, definitely.
And so how many members do you have?
One.
Nah.
No, I don't know. I have a few people on the page, but I have a few friends on the page. I do know other people in London who are sort of anarchists and that, but no, there is no associates. It's just meet up and just have a laugh at the demos, take the piss, then go home. You know what I mean?
So,
Really,
what do you think? What do you think about this whole Black Lives Matter thing that's going on at the moment?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a worthy cause. You know what I mean? I was looking today. My mate was at he was live streaming. They're still fighting now, I think, down the street. So police have surrounded the EGL in where is it? Down at where the theatre is. What's it called again?
Drury Lane.
No, the next one. Anyway, that down there. Where at the Odeon? Where is it? Where's
Leicester
Square.
Leicester Square.
Yeah.
They
West End.
Yeah, it was live streamed from there, and they just put his gangs roaming round, waiting to pick them off. Like, you know what I mean?
Because loads of football fans have gone up there, haven't they? Essentially, loads of supporters from different football teams have gone down to protect the monuments.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but as I say, they were nothing to do protecting the monuments. They were pissing on. Was it that policeman's fucking memorial thing, weren't they? One of them was. It's like, you know, they had nothing to do with protecting the monuments. It's down there for a rut, you know. But they wouldn't stand a chance against these young gangs. Then they wouldn't be fast enough. You know what I mean? They wouldn't stand a chance. One on one, no way. They might be big, but they wouldn't last. If they fight, they wouldn't be able to last for 10 seconds. You know what I mean? They'd just be drinking all day. You know what I mean?
How do you think the media's been handling it all then?
The media, well, I mean, they're just showing it. But what did Johnson say? Johnson said something like, "We can't have people tearing down." Winston Churchill was a blah 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 and all this, and all going on about Churchill. Then he said, "We can't have people taking down statues." So that includes slave traders, does it? So you can't have people taking down slave traders. That's what he included. Honestly, I don't know how you can have. He's like Donald Trump, isn't he? He's just unbelievable.
It's strange times we're living in when we got Donald Trump and Boris Johnson, both leaders of the world.
Two
you couldn't make it
knuckleheads
up.
for too much power. Yeah. You know what's crazy is what's happened in Seattle. Have you heard about that? They occupied 7 blocks of Seattle, and this is a cop-free zone, and they've turned it into a kind of autonomous state where they police themselves.
What's this recent?
Yeah. This has just happened in very recent times as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement. They've occupied a central part of Seattle City, and they've removed all police. They've cordoned it off, and they've created essentially. As I say, an autonomous area where they've decided to police themselves.
We'll see how that pans out.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I mean, Trump's threatening to bring military in, but I don't know if that's going to satisfy these protesters. Do you know what I mean? I think if he was smart, he would give them a bit of, throw them a bone,
Yeah.
But I just think it's interesting times because people now feel like enough is enough, and they're prepared to, basically disregard the police altogether, which could be a good step in the direction,
Obviously, you do need police for some things, though.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, there's rapists and murderers and paedophiles out there, but I think the police are generally. I wouldn't say necessarily. In this country, in America, because America's a kind of most extreme example of everything. The whole gun control thing is completely out of proportion. Obesity is out of proportion. Having cosmetic surgery, every element, every box. You look at America, and it's kind of like a kind of joke, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, it's like a pantomime, It
is, yeah, and everyone looks on, they got the world record for the amount of high school shootings. You know,
I know
it's just-
by far, by a long way as well.
Yeah, and the media love it. The media love it. As soon as one of those happens, it's just like the whole world's just flooded with the details of the shooting and all that sort of stuff. And I think pretty much because the American culture is bombarded with guns and drugs and money. Basically.
That's it, mate. It's all centered around the dollar, really, because these kids end up, with predisposition to bad mental disorders. They can very easily be prescribed quite heavy sedatives by pharmaceutical companies. Then they can quite easily attain a gun, and it's all because these corporations make money from it, and that's it, really. So they sell the drugs, then they sell the guns, then they sell the story when these people get mentally ill.
This is an interesting point. We talk about corporations and how it gets caught up in things that are meant to be more worthy causes. This is the irony, because there was a thing about, obviously, a lot of people have been talking about. Well, I was listening to Rage Against the Machine recently, and I really relate to that at the moment because I can get behind the spirit of protest, anger, and all that. Right? I assume you're familiar with them at least to a point, Joe. Rage, you know them?
Who's that? Sorry.
Rage Against the Machine. Who did Killing in the Name?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything you'd like to say about them actually, or before I make my point, or you know much about them? Have you done you ever covered their songs or anything, or?
Who, Nick? Me?
Yeah. I mean, what is your general? I
don't know. I only heard a couple of songs from them. I know the group you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I think that's as strong now as it was back then.
Well,
they were from LA, weren't they? And LA was having a lot of riots.
There was the thing with Rodney King, the BT of Rodney King, and they literally. Yeah. Well, there's several examples of artists who protested that. Ice Cube protested that on the Predator, his album The Predator, and Rage Against the Machine, who released their debut album, the same year, '92, also protested it. But the interesting part is how some people criticised them for, even back in the time when they were when they first became big, for being associated with a massive record label. I think it was Sony. I think it was Sony, and people were saying, "Well, how can you have this message while you're signed to something that's massively capitalist?" And I think they said the quote. I can find the quote, but basically it was something along the lines. I think Zach De La Rocha and Tom Morello basically said that it's just a medium. It's a means to reach people. It doesn't matter how it's done. They said something like that, which I agree with. I think if it's really clever in a way to be able to express revolutionary messages through a capitalist system that you're trying to some degree dismantle or at least alter. So,
but isn't it making a lot of money for the very corporation that they're trying to fight?
Yeah.
That was one of the problems I had with them. Even though their music and their sentiment was good, I still thought that actually the record company's making multi-millions of pounds out of this band.
Yeah, a sketchy, corrupt one like Sony as well.
Yeah. But they did also, a lot of the money they earned, they gave to charities. They put into a lot of the poorer projects and stuff like that.
You
got to balance it out, the positive.
Yeah, money doesn't have to mean evil. I don't think you have to be poor to be. I mean, I don't think you have to be poor to be good or rich to be bad. It's more just how you use money. I mean, there are rich people who are philanthropists, for example, and that's kind of what they were doing. But
yeah, you know what's interesting about Rage Against the Machines? Their first album, they've got the picture of the burning man.
Yeah,
the monk who committed suicide as a protest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in that way as well, it's just fucking fascinating. That someone could be pushed to that point of martyrdom, you know.
It was also that image was also used on a Dead Kennedys record, but I can't remember which one it was.
Was it? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it happened in '63, didn't it?
Yeah, that was a protest as well. He did.
Yeah, he was protesting a Vietnamese tyrannical. It was in Vietnam. Yeah, it was to fight oppression of the Buddhist monks in the area.
By the Americans.
Incredibly interesting.
You sure it was Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. So who was he protesting? The Viet Cong or the Americans or someone else?
No, in fact, the Americans actually stepped in to help the cause, believe it or not.
The cause he was supporting.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
His name was Thich Quang Duc. I might be pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah, no, it sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, a Vietnamese Mahayana Buddhist monk who burned himself to death at a busy Saigon road, basically in South Vietnam. He was protesting the persecution of Buddhists. Yeah. And then there's that famous picture that was sent worldwide, and it reached an international acclaim.
Yeah.
And then the Americans stepped in. JFK, I believe, said, "Oh, we need to go in there." And I believe the Vietnamese leader was assassinated that year, the same year.
Right. Okay.
Interesting.
So the Burning Man's protest actually resulted in a tyrannical leader being assassinated.
What I find interesting is that, and I'm gonna move
By
on.
communists.
Was that next?
Yeah.
It was obviously because China had a big thing with the Buddhists as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why the Dalai Lama took all his people from Tibet and they moved to northern India.
That's
right.
That's going on now.
Which Joe and I have been to, badly enough.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Well, you went to northern India or to...
I queued up to wait to speak to the Dalai Lama, and I got so bored of waiting, I just left. It was only about 10 people away from me, and I couldn't be asked.
You didn't make the journey up the mountain and then leave. It's like Simpsons. Like,
I was living up there at the time, so it was on my doorstep.
Oh, right, okay. So you weren't like walking for 5 miles and then going home for nothing.
It was quite strange. Should you get loads of travellers go out there, and they're giving all the monks Nike trainers and Adidas trainers, and they're all walking around with all these really sporty Western footwear,
sort of swanky trainers on. Yeah. A bit of a juxtaposition there, mate. So you got 10 people away from the Dalai Lama, and then you said, "Sod this, I'm going to go meet Kim Jong Il."
What I figured was that there were so many people in the queue, because you have to queue up all day. There were so many people there. I thought everyone's going to be asking him the same sort of question. I couldn't really think of anything to ask him. I was actually going to say something like, because at the time it was 1998. And the World Cup was on in France. So I was going to ask him who he thought was going to win.
And then you were going to put money on that team, yeah?
Yeah. And then I just got to the point. I thought, I'm not queuing up for this. It's just and he seemed nice enough, but
yeah, of course.
As it happened, France won.
That's a great thing to do, though. I mean, you saw the massive Taj Mahal. It's called it.
Yeah. Taj Mahal.
Taj Mahal, yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Sounds like a great trip.
It's interesting because, like, you mentioned Tibet, and I was just thinking, because I've been thinking a lot about protests and stuff in music, obviously, because that was one of the themes, and all the arts, but music was the main one. So, like, there was so many examples of that. Like, so with the Tibet example, there's actually a modern example, though it's not popular. It's an underground example, but there's a metal band who wrote a album called Coloured Sands, which is all about the persecution of the Tibetans and obviously protesting that, so opposing it, which is good. But I mean, this stuff's gone on for a long time, which is it's interesting how it's expressed differently in different mediums as well.
I suppose
how expressed in art. There are some artworks, aren't there? I'm sure. I don't know which you guys are most familiar with, like visual art, but I'm sure there's some artworks from, like, especially in the 50s, 60s, that would have been protesting various things. I've seen a couple. It doesn't spring to mind, but I know. I just can't think of the name.
Yeah, I can't think of any.
But there are. I mean, I know they exist. I just can't think of the name. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They do.
I suppose one of the most successful peaceful protesters was Mahatma Gandhi.
Yeah.
And that was more the spiritual.
He's like the symbol of peaceful protest, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Non-violent protest, yeah.
I mean, the man went on hunger strikes to near death.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
Can I ask, what was the point of that, actually? Why was him starving himself going to stop the things from going on around him that were bad?
It was the British colonialism of India. They were brutal to the locals. They were essentially raping the land and stealing all of their resources. and they were depriving the Indians of using their own resources, like salt, for example. So Mahatma Gandhi basically said, let's all go on a march and protest it.
There is an element of Life of Brian there, though, where with the, what did the Romans ever do for us? Well, they
yeah.
They got
Well, I mean,
festivals, hospitals, education.
Isn't it that India's economy actually did kind of get worse after independence?
Yeah, I presume it did, but obviously they didn't have the British government bankrolling and looking after everything.
That's it. Yeah. So
and
yeah,
do you know,
there's two sides. There's two sides to the coin, isn't
Well,
there?
the thing is, I guess like with empires and stuff. Obviously, I don't think there's. Well, I don't know. I don't know enough about colonialism to like fairly comment on it. I know that it's caused a lot of harm as well to a lot of people to those countries, and I don't agree with it on that basis at all. But if you look at empires throughout history, I don't know if that can be said for every empire. This is kind of a different subject, but I was just thinking ancient Rome is quite an interesting example, because I don't know. I mean, they did enslave people, but I don't know to what extent everyone hated them. Because when the Rome fell, I don't think it was necessarily like, oh, it's all rising against Rome. It was more just a gradual thing. That's different. But like,
it's the same as any great historic civilization, but at some point would have taken over another country's landmass and enslaved the people in some way. Egypt did as well, didn't they? All the pyramids, they weren't built by the locals.
Yeah, the Romans did it to Britain, and the Britons did it to and then Britain got invaded time and again by the Saxons, who then
Vikings.
Culture. They became part of culture, and then the Vikings, and then the Normans. And those things are part of our culture now.
And the Britons were enslaved to work for all of those invaders.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, back then there was so much slavery going around; it was quite a normal practice, wasn't it?
The ancient world was built on slavery.
Yeah, but let's go get some slaves.
Pretty much the modern world.
Yeah,
Well, this is interesting because this brings us to the point about the statues, I guess, because that's well, I mean, my view on it is that people have every right to be angry, and I don't think it's wrong at all for them to want the statues to be taken down. Personally, I think they should. I don't know if they were destroyed or what has actually happened to them, but I think the better thing would have been to move them to a place where they're like an offensive.
That's what happened to the one in Bristol. They recovered it out of the river and they put it in a kind of museum exhibition or something like that.
Because then they can say to people, this guy wasn't a nice guy. He didn't enslave people, but this is a historical record which we want to preserve because people need to know about what happened. If anything, if they don't know,
it's an interesting subject, mate, because he obviously was a slave owner. No one can justify that, but he also was very relevant historically to the industries, particularly tobacco, in Bristol. Is part of what Bristol was built on.
Edward Colston, by any chance?
Edward Colston, yeah, specifically. Bristol was built on the transatlantic slave trades, and tobacco. Which was all funded through slavery. So it's
that just makes it sound even worse. Like we got off them taking tobacco from people and also harming our own people with tobacco. Although it's nice, it's really unhealthy.
That was the Native Americans having a joke back on the.
Oh, you mean they were taking? Well, the Native Americans were like taking revenge on the white people by giving us tobacco.
Yeah,
this what makes me laugh about the whole thing in America, right? Because there's all this going on, all these massive protests about slavery, but actually all these people that protesting on one side or the other are actually immigrants in a country where the Native American Indian has been pushed aside and he's had his homeland decimated, his people raped and killed and murdered, and they're just a forgotten people. They are forgotten people in the whole of this. Everyone's going, oh yeah, the blacks, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter and blah, 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 and they got all the white supremacists having a go, and there's all this going on. There's some poor little Indian family sitting there going, what happened to our land?
What about
They're
us?
arguing over our land.
Yeah. Well,
I argue that there isn't a full consistency in the argument there.
No, but that depends on. Well, I mean, it depends on what the aims are of the people doing it. So with BLM, Black Lives Matter, there obviously are people within it who do want civil rights for everybody, and most of them probably are like that.
Yeah,
There might be a minority of people who are using it only to further black rights. But I think in general, the reason why the biggest counter to the whole all lives matter thing is that Black Lives Matter is supposed to be that anyway. It's supposed to be saying, well, these people are still, even in this day and age, we're still at a point where America, who's supposed to be a democracy, can have a. The point is that, yeah, this is something I have to bring up that I'm so incredulous about, that we live in the 21st century, and in America, which is a democracy, somehow someone can just get killed when they're under arrest, and that's not even legal. The police aren't supposed to be able to kill people who haven't even been convicted yet. Police aren't judge, jury, and executioner. It's not Judge Dredd. It's like, it's messed up, isn't it?
Well, mate.
And I guess that's the point of BLM. They're saying that everybody who's been disenfranchised gets treated that way, which would include the Native Americans. But I agree as well with what Nick's saying, which is that they do get forgotten about because they're not as many of them, I guess. The small number of them means they're not so thought of, and that's not really fair. They deserve to be thought of as well. We need to raise more awareness of those things. That's what Race were trying to do. They wrote a lot of songs about that.
Yeah, I think some Native Americans in America have also taken part in destroying statues as well. I think they've gotten involved with it too.
They probably want to destroy every statue, don't they?
Yeah. Well, they did. They were like, honestly, like, I mean, you guys have probably all seen Lost in the Mohicans, I assume.
No.
Big thing, I imagine. No,
I've heard of it.
It was a book. There's also a film with Daniel Day-Lewis and a few other people. But it just sort of showed the way the British and the French, because this is before even the Americans. So it's the British and the French playing the different tribes off against each other in order to get more of their land. Human greed is the problem, really. Human greed. People needing to control things and not respecting other people. And then I guess. Yeah, I don't know what I think to say there, but yeah, the good. I guess the good thing is when you have people who do want to make an impact through the arts, through social commentary, and I wonder how far back that goes. I mean, there might have been going on in the 18th century, but I don't know what records we have of that. So.
I would have thought music and protest have been inundated since the beginning. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like even on the plantations and stuff. The African Americans would all sing protest songs while they worked.
When the blues
and they weren't
came around, the blues as well, same time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, variants of that style. Yeah. Well, that became the blues as we know it. Yeah. Yeah, man. I think music is just a great way to rally people together. I think if Black Lives Matter has some music that they bring along with the protests, and they keep it peaceful, and then they don't loot. Yeah, because that's when they'll get lumped together as just a bunch of bad eggs, and then the military will come in and sort them out. If they keep it peaceful, play music, occupy places, then the government will have to sit there and listen.
So Joe, you and I have both been on violent protests that have turned violent, haven't we?
Yeah.
Oh.
How did you actually feel about that? Well, no, I remember feeling terrified when I was up at Trafalgar.
Can you explain exactly the background of this first, actually, Nick? Because I'm curious, obviously.
It was the poll tax riots, wasn't it?
Oh no, I wasn't there for them. No.
Oh, okay, yeah, no.
I was in Australia. Yeah.
Right, okay, but you have been on what we have been on ones which.
Yeah. What's it called? Criminal Justice Bill ones.
That's right. Yeah.
What was it about? What was the protest against, basically?
Well, what we have at the moment,
the Criminal Justice Bill about raving, weren't it? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So the Criminal Justice Bill one was basically stopping gatherings of something stupid, wasn't it? Like more than 50 people.
Repetitive beats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that part of it?
Beats.
Yeah.
How can they enforce that? Like they stop there and listen for a while.
Because the music industry got turned on its head by the rave scene, because all of a sudden it became kind of like an ungovernable kind of thing. Because whereas before bands would have to go through record companies and all that, you'd always have those bands on the peripheries who wouldn't need a record company. But generally, everyone was going to see bands who were playing at certain venues. But all of a sudden with raves, there was loads of revenue was being made, but none of it was going to the government. That's right,
Yeah.
essentially, Joe, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is
None of the money, in the 90s. So there were all these farmers and people warehouses renting out these warehouses to have these massive parties, and there was no governing body over it. It was police would try and raid it, and they couldn't raid it because there would be 10,000 people there, all off their nuts.
Yeah, like that's
And there was no
that's not
possible way
advisable.
So basically, squat rapes. Yeah?
Yeah.
Squat rapes. Am I right? So what it's
Yeah,
called.
so basically, they would just take. It was another example where they were taking away people's rights, and some of the protests turned ugly. But the protests would quite often turn ugly by police
Well, the
instigating
Beanfield,
it.
wasn't it? The Beanfield started it all off, didn't it, Nick? It was the Beanfield incident.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
that was the anniversary.
Yeah,
About a couple of days back. Yeah.
So explain the Beanfield incident, Joe. Explain the Beanfield incident.
Right. Well, basically, the travellers, new age travellers, and hippies, had a convoy. People were just giving up their jobs and going to live on the road and having parties and making money from the parties. And they had quite a big convoy, and they were going to Stonehenge, and the police shepherded them into the Beanfield, and basically beat the shit out of them, smashed their cars up, set them on light, and beat up the women, children, dogs, smashed them to pieces, and then arrested them as well. And then it smashed all their homes up, and it was all on television. And I think they were restricted from reporting about it, weren't they? Or saying?
That's right. Yeah, it was all.
So you're saying the kind of
they look like a bunch of cunts doing that, so they didn't report it.
You're saying the I'm really surprised. You're saying in the UK there was almost, this is in the 90s too, was it?
Yeah.
Well, so in the 90s there occasionally you'd get the police acting like we live in a dictatorship, and they're just basically abusing people.
Yeah, it was terrible actually.
Yeah.
Was it 90s or 80s?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the early 90s.
The early 90s.
Still, make it.
That's fucking horrendous.
Shouldn't have happened. Yeah, obviously it's like.
Yeah, but no one got compensation. They just delayed giving them compensation. And what I mean, no one got anything out of it, and they could carry it on, but they can't be bothered now. It's like only 20 or 30 years later or whatever. You know what I mean? They just can't be bothered. So, yeah. But the army, their actual army, were in the uniforms as well. They're off-duty soldiers as well. You know. People were there, yeah. And they've said about it afterwards. They had the army.
They're off duty. They shouldn't have been involved. It's like, yeah.
Well, there's Thatcher's stormtroopers, weren't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, yeah. So what, they had off-duty soldiers in police uniform?
Yeah.
And they came in and they just beat everyone up.
I'll see a picture of it. Yeah.
That's bloody mental. Beanfield, yeah?
Yeah, the Beanfield. You look it up, it's on Wikipedia,
Yeah. No, I'll look into that. So I've never heard of that before. I'm not surprised the government don't tell us about stuff.
Someone should write a song about it, or a piece of music. If they haven't, they should.
But quite often you'd have a protest or an event, and the police would actually send undercover people in there to cause trouble in the event, to stoke up trouble, so the police would react. Which is what happened.
Tried to implicate falsely.
Yeah.
Which is what happened at Trafalgar when we went on the poll tax march, which was they decided to bring this thing, which still exists today, the community charge. They brought this thing in, loads of people protested, saying, "No, we don't want to pay for this," because prior to that there hadn't been a community charge or poll tax. So people went on the protest in Trafalgar Square, and the police just came in from all corners of Trafalgar Square and hemmed everyone in with horses and batons and all that, and then it all kicked off, and it just went absolutely loony. And the police went in absolutely, completely heavy-handed, and they were just hitting anyone, regardless of who they were.
Yeah.
And there was quite a few, wasn't there, Joe? Brockwell Park.
Oh yeah, Brockwell Park. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
I was at that one.
Yeah, that was more of a gig though, wasn't it? Was that the gig or?
That was a gig.
Oh, that was GLC, wasn't it?
There was a gig there. They had a gig at Brockwell Park, but there was a march going up there as well, and the police would turn up really heavy-handed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can't remember what the march is. I think it was something to do with GLC, the gig, though, weren't it? I remember the Damned were on stage, weren't they? That was right, yeah.
So, yeah, go on. If you want to finish what you're saying.
No, it's just the criminal justice bill march. That was mental. I was in Hyde Park and they charged. You know what I mean? They just charged and hit anyone. You know, unbelievable. I see Blake get run over by a horse, and he flew up in the air above the horse, and he landed on the floor. Then the horse landed on his back, and he was just unconscious on the floor. I don't know. He might have broke his back. I don't know. But like they just anything now they won't do anything because everyone's got phones. I'll tell you, it's the best thing ever. People have got phones. They
and the police have to wear those body cams as well, right?
Yeah. But you're
right.
That's the thing about George Floyd so quickly, because I think it was filmed, wasn't it? People could see that he was being kneeled on for 10 minutes, with no justification, and that's how
There's no justification at all. He didn't even commit a crime that they thought he.
No, it was he was a past criminal, but that was not recent. Yeah, it was like years ago, I think. So yeah. Anyway,
there's a law though, even in this country as well. There is a law that allows police to choke you by kneeling on your neck. That the police are technically allowed to do that here.
But only under certain circumstances, not the ones that that was.
Yeah, but if you're a policeman and you're a sadistic cunt, like.
So what you're saying is they're not meant to be authoritarian, but they can use that power wrongly if they want to.
I got beaten up. I got beaten up by the police when I was 17. I was still at school.
What did you do? What did they claim?
I didn't do anything. There was, you know Mark O'Halloran, didn't you, Joe?
Yeah, I'd seen him the other day, actually, yeah. The other day, yeah.
Mark O'Halloran and I had been on Richmond Green for a mate of ours. Remember Dave Bandy, the punk?
Vaguely, yeah, go on.
He had elephantitis, he had big eyebrows and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So it was his birthday, we went up to Richmond Green, and I had school the next day, and we got on a bus, and we were both dressed as punks. I had the sort of Sid Vicious look and all that, and Mark had a big sort of Mohican thing going on. And the police took us off the bus and gave us a kicking, essentially.
What for?
For nothing. We went
just for being dressed the way you were dressed.
Oh no, I heard about this. Yeah, back in the 70s, often the police would pick on people who were dressed funny or differently.
Yeah,
for metalheads. Yeah.
Yeah, because back in those days, you had no CCTV, no cameras, and the police could do what they like.
But what you're saying is that, what kind of to go back to what Lawrence is saying is that essentially, obviously, what happened to George Floyd was illegal, really, but the police basically will abuse.
It wouldn't have been if he didn't die.
Really, despite it being still brutal, if he survived.
Yeah.
That's
the police have the right to kneel on your neck.
But surely that would only be if you're violently resisting them with a weapon. That would actually be the only time, right? Surely it should be.
In an ideal world, they would
only use that people abuse their power, which is the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think this guy, he needs to be convicted of at least second-degree murder. And if he isn't, the riots, we haven't seen anything yet. They'll get a lot worse.
And they should. Because the police we shouldn't be living in a first world. People shouldn't have to walk in fear that the police might kill them in a first world country for basically nothing.
And there's cold hard evidence. It's not like, we're not sure of the details. We know exactly what happened.
We know that a woman accused him of something which was proven to be false anyway, but that's right, isn't it? It wasn't even true. And then they claimed he resisted arrest, and then they held him down, and then somehow. Well, basically, the biggest thing for me is even beyond the race thing, which is obviously very important as well because it is to do with that. But even beyond that, the authoritarianism. I think it's like what Nick was saying and what you guys were saying. But there's obviously there's a reason why we need the arts to do this. The arts have to be our means of protest, and I can understand more when I hear these stories. Like you saying that because of the way you addressed it happened, Nick, and there you go. It's there's no justification for that. Nowadays it's a bit different. I think they even passed a law that makes it illegal to bully people for being dressed as gothic or punk or metal. I think they grouped it under one big thing. but they said it's illegal now, I think, which is good. But back in your days, it probably wasn't.
Back in the day, though, because punk and skinheads were all seen as sort of anti-establishment.
Yeah,
and so the soldiers of the establishment were the police, and so the police would look at anyone who was dressed differently and think, right, okay, they don't like us, and they go in.
It's the sus laws, weren't it? It's the sus laws. One policeman says to the other, "Oh, I think he's done something," and if he goes yes, they could go and hassle you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or try and arrest you.
And that's what happens in America all the time, where you've got all these videos of guys, usually black guys again, who just get accused of stuff and asked where they work and whatnot for nothing. There was a teacher who had
In
that.
America,
Yeah, it was a teacher who happened to be black, and so for that reason, clearly, it was like there was something. Yeah, the police were trying to bully him into admitting he'd done something wrong when he'd done nothing. He didn't get done for anything because he hadn't done anything. But like, so yeah, I mean.
Obviously, it's different in America because everyone has the potential to carry a gun. So the police have got to be ultra wary in America. I wouldn't like to be a policeman. If I'm going to be a policeman,
because not only is it, the
police
all have guns, but it's likely a lot of the citizens have guns.
I mean, there is that. Yeah. Well, beyond police brutality, there's also issues with society itself. And what you're saying is, I think you were saying, Lawrence, in the sense that. It's the violence in society itself that's part of the problem then as well. It's also the way that
I mean, we have it over here, but as Joe and Nick were saying, like back in the day, it was a lot worse.
It's still not as extreme as America.
It's still bad here now. I mean, it's obviously like, there's a lot of people who still feel like it's very bad to this day. But in America, it's times 10. The amount of videos you see of police just going up to protesters and tasing them, for no reason, just tasing them, man.
So how people don't have rights to just why do the police have the right to just do whatever they want? That's what I don't get.
Because they have governors who are corrupt and politicians who just say, "Oh, get out of jail free card."
And the police force are a boys' club unto themselves. It doesn't matter if the police force is made up of Hispanic coppers, black coppers, white coppers, Chinese coppers, whatever. They are their own force for themselves, and they are the boys' club. Yeah, and they're a gang. Together. They all stick together, and that's pretty much the same for most police forces. We can't say all police forces, but generally. I
mean, this is an interesting point. I'd hope most people don't join the police to become or exercise their inherent dark side to be a bully. Hopefully, most people join the police to do what they think is justified or good. Hopefully.
I wonder what the proportion is, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people like the idea of being able to exercise authority,
power. Yeah, it's power. If you want to be a power control freak, probably a job you'd go into is a policeman. Like if you want to abuse children, you'd probably go into a job as a scout leader or a school teacher or in a church.
Yeah, it's about
it's something that's going to get you what you need. And I think unfortunately, you do get a lot of bully boy element going into things like the police force and the army.
Well, this is interesting because I was just thinking, the second you said that, I was thinking about how the arts have a power as well, but it's obviously a completely different kind of power because because I've never seen that kind of negativity between like artists and their followers. For example, a band plays, generally speaking, the bands and their fans then beat each other up. They get on, they're friends, they actually like each other. So it's very different the way power is exercised in art. Power is used more positively, I think.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Because obviously there is an element of that. Because even like Queen they were saying that one of their most famous songs is "We Will Rock You," which is a quite extreme statement, but it's never used negatively. It's fun.
I don't know if that's really relevant to a protest song.
Yeah,
but like you were talking about.
I'm talking about how the art. I'm talking about how the arts have power. Musicians and bands have power in the sense that people enjoy their music and they get caught up in it.
Think about this, mate. The Nazis used artists to create propaganda to paint Jews as subhuman creatures, and they used art to basically progress
everything about the whole Nazi sort of regime at the time was artistic. Even their uniforms and all that. If you look at any uniform, they had kind of one of the most stunning uniforms. It was kind of it looked like a really dark, evil force.
Yeah, it suited. Yeah, in a weird way, it suited what they were about.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
the SS uniform, especially,
and their pointy symbol with the
especially
arrows.
the SS uniforms with the black and silver. Black and silver is like, yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, have you seen Lemmy? You know, it's quite jokes. Like,
well,
he's not.
Far from
he's not a Nazi, but
yeah, he's about as far from a fascist as you can imagine. He's like free-loving, like rocker. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. That rock, especially extreme music, would often adopt these extreme symbols, but nevertheless, the power relationship between like artists and people, generally speaking, I think has been more positive. But in some cases, like you say, Lawrence, it's been used negatively too. But with things like, say, Rage, I would say, or the Dead Kennedys, for the most part, I'd say their intention was really good, and so that's different kind of use of power. But you still get people pumped up, people angry. When I listened to Rage, it actually connected me with the spirit of what's going on now, and I was like, actually, I get this now. It's quite weird, but it does have an
impact. The thing with music is you can get a message across to a much wider audience rather than going out and sort of speaking on street corners and all that sort of stuff. You know, exactly, people can buy records and they can listen to what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
and especially if it's an underground movement, an underground sort of mantra, they can get that across through music. I learned a lot from listening to crash punk records, Joe, as you probably did yourself. Really,
yeah.
I'd sit there with the lyric sheets and listening to them over and over again. Like you said, some of the lyrics went on for pages and pages.
Yeah.
But,
They're timeless, same as the Dead Kennedys, isn't they? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to some Crass. I've heard of them.
Yeah.
Where were they from?
East London, is it?
East London, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Sort of east.
Oh, you listened to some Conflict, didn't you? I put up.
Yeah, I did. Right. Yeah, so that sort of stuff, yeah.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, did you guys? I mean, I don't know. You didn't get this joke because it was just with my team. But Nick and Lawrence, did you listen to any of the songs I put up? You probably knew them already, but there was a couple.
Yeah, I obviously.
I saw you put up an Ice Cube song.
I put up Sepultura, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I get a chance to listen to it, mate. But
I was
will.
familiar with all them anyway, so.
I like NWA's approach to music, mate. They had no inhibition. They said what they wanted to say.
Well, Public Enemy,
police warned them not to, and they said "fuck them" anyway, and did it anyway.
Public Enemy, fear of a black man, yeah. Yeah. As well. Well, the arts have are usually used more positively, is what I'm saying, but unless they're controlled by governments, in which case they tend not to be. It seems like you were saying that with the Nazi stuff or whatever. That is a bit different.
Well, yeah, I mean, Hitler was a painter himself. He had a great appreciation for art.
Yeah.
The Hugo Boss. I mean, what I can't get is all these companies like you've got a Hugo Boss now. You've got not Monsanto. What's it called? Bayer. They done the gas for the gas chambers, and they're still going. You know what I mean? All these Nazis and that they went rocket scientists, and also became NATO generals and established the EU.
Karl Lagerfeld designed the Nazi uniforms.
Yeah. Old Boss, wasn't it? Was it Karl Lagerfeld?
I thought it was Karl Lagerfeld.
Well, you think
I was under the impression it was Hugo Boss that designed the Nazi
uniforms. You talk about how German companies after the war came to the UK and the same.
Mate, the American government drafted top Nazi scientists to help them with their NASA program.
The Nazis actually nicked the swastika off the Hindus, didn't they?
Yeah, and just made it more. They turned it from L's into little pointy arrows. Yeah.
But just turned it on its side.
Yeah.
Hitler's telescope in Darjeeling. Yeah.
Have they got Hitler's telescope? They got Hitler's telescope in Darjeeling.
Yeah. You can go to Darjeeling. There's just one telescope. And it says Hitler's telescope. There's nothing around it. It's just there. It says it's a present for using the swastika.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
His telescope. Fucking hell. You know what I mean? How tight is that?
I might go and nick
it.
Well, I think also it's obviously like it brings us to the next question actually, but I think also this comes down to like different areas having different because you were talking about how this protest that went on Stonehenge, well, not the protest, but this group of travellers and all that, and it's quite interesting because I've actually imagined something like that happening, like a group of people just sort of all these caravans going somewhere. But I didn't. But it already happened back in the 90s. So I guess these things have gone on for a long time. There's always been three groups of people who have come together and done something, like especially if it's something any artistic or party vibe. The second question I had, which was whether a message, like let's just say a political message or a message that's based on social commentary, could that message be both relevant to a certain time and place, but also be like eternal or timeless? Can you have a timeless message that's still like very specific? Like
you can have a protest song about a specific war, like the Vietnam War, but it would still resonate. It would still apply to anything, you know. Who did the song War? Actually, did the song War? War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again. Wow, war.
yeah. Jackie Chan in Rush Hour. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, like, you make a good point. And what about like John Lennon's song Imagine? Yeah, all that stuff is still a problem now. You know, you listen to the song Imagine, and it's like, yeah, it still makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, you know, the idea of something still making sense and being timeless, like, you know, look at Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech he made at in Washington DC.
Yeah.
You know, I reckon that still resonates a lot with you know, the people in Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So,
and Malcolm X, obviously.
Yeah, Malcolm X. Yeah.
Different approaches, but yeah.
Two different approaches, but both had a lot of substance, you know.
I think a Crash song, I can't remember the name of it. What's the name of Crash song, a famous one, Nick? I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, there's one.
Sheep farming in the Falklands.
No, it's just, no. Anyway, there's one that it goes into the government, goes into the Queen, goes into everything. Live your life how you want to be and all that. And like that's timeless because nothing ever bloody changes here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're stuck in a bloody time warp. You know.
This is
the lyrics, and you just go, yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, that was like 40 years ago. You know.
This is my whole thing about democracy. The whole thing about democracy is that we all think we're kind of free, but actually, voting doesn't really change anything.
No.
You kind of all the governments that you vote in are still tied to massive corporations.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
different managers.
That's what George Carlin said. He said it's not real democracy. You can vote between Coke and Pepsi.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And it's like if it was real democracy, we'd vote on whether we wanted to go to war in Syria or any war.
Yeah.
You know, they'd give the vote to the people. We'd all sit here with control.
Everything.
I agree.
It seems to me we're economically and the whole situation is exactly the same. Something's happened 40 years ago, and it's like neoliberalism. I think I don't know, but I probably is that. You know, I mean, Thatcherism is still here. It's like everything stops. Your wages, everything stops. You know what I mean? It's like a time warp. I mean, I was watching the film Gary Oldman, and it was like from 1983, and he went down to the job centre. And he said there was £150 a week jobs. He goes, oh, I ain't getting that because it wasn't enough money. Go to a job centre now, there's still £150 jobs a week. You know what I mean? Crazy, isn't it? That's like a time warp, you know?
I know, yes.
Well, obviously something society have moved forward, but like you were saying, like smartphones, that's different. But other things are stuck in the past. So what I think we need to do, what the PAC is aiming to do as well through the arts, is to elevate people's understanding to the point where we can actually change things. Because I think certain things have changed, like we were saying, other things haven't. It's clear the technology changes, people don't change as quickly. So what we need to do is to use technology to its best to try and affect change.
Smartphones are just a tracking device, basically. It's just like instead of filling out sensor forms about where you live and what your job is and all that, you've just got social media that all the governments in the world can plug into.
Yeah, well, I don't put... Yeah.
And they openly admit that they do that.
Well, you don't
Yeah,
have to put your details on Facebook as much as you want. That's the thing. I'm not saying it's good. I agree with you, Nick. But
if you've got a phone contract, you've got your own sort of PIN number for the phone, which ties you into a contract with your bank details. And
no, I know. Yeah, there is that. Yeah, of course. This is the trouble. I think,
Mate, they've been tracking us over lockdown. I mean, and way before. But lockdown, they've been looking at where people's phones have been travelling to see how many people are breaking the rules.
Really dodgy. I think. I don't think that's good. That's right.
I mean, but that's not been the beginning. They've been doing this for years. Yeah.
even WhatsApp, which used to be kind of like the encrypted, safe way of sending messages, is now owned by Facebook.
Right. Yeah.
Well, again, this is
Mark Zuckerberg.
I guess it depends on who owns it. Like this is the thing. If it was all like our friends who own these corporations, we probably wouldn't feel that way if we trusted them. But we can't trust people we don't really know. People who may not have the right intention for humanity. I think this brings us to the third question actually, because like we want to finish in like say 15 minutes. The last main question was basically. I was thinking about the difference between like protest and social commentary through the arts and protest or social commentary just in general, like through other means. Do you think there are other means that are as or less effective or more effective than using it through the arts? Or do you think the arts is the best way to affect change? Are there other ways? Or I just wanted to basically even that for discussion. So
just direct action works. I mean, was it? I don't. You know what I mean? Well, you see the statue straight away. Poll tax rights. Stop the poll tax. It's the only thing that works in the end is direct action. So I mean, I'm just going to be. I mean, I'll be sitting there in a week or so's time, still waiting to put my hand down a hole for a lock on. You know what I mean? Underground. But like when I've done that, I'll be off. But that's the only thing I can do is the direct action bit. I don't think. I think that's it really. You know, yourself.
I think the arts are a good way of getting a message across, but it's not the same as it used to be, because now a lot of the messages aren't getting across to the people.
Okay, well, why do you think that is? Because obviously there's also been all this stuff recently. I don't know if you read about this, but I'm talking about Rage Against the Machine. All their songs have come back into the charts in the last few days because of what happened with George Floyd and the BLM. So, but you're still saying, nevertheless, Nick, that things are not getting across to the right people. So, what do you mean? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, they're not getting across to the right people, because the trouble with society nowadays is that schools are like a factory, just churning out people to get jobs and get married and get a mortgage. And get tied down to a life of debt. And people that won't take any risks anymore, they're like, oh no, I don't want to lose my job, I don't want to lose my wife, I don't want to lose my BMW, or I'll just sit at home and I don't agree with this and blah, 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 but I'm not going to go out and take any risks anymore. Whereas back in the day, that used to happen a lot more.
People feel like they've got too much to lose. Maybe
you were saying the arts aren't taking enough risks as well. What you were saying, or the people they're not reaching the right people. You were saying the message.
I think any political message done via music or the arts is suppressed a lot.
Right. Well. Okay. Well, that's something we can.
Apart from anything else,
it won't necessarily get radio play.
Apart from anything else, there's a lot of smaller music venues which are closed down, where a lot of bands would be travelling around the country, and they play hundreds of little gigs to crowds of 100 or so. But now there's only big venues, and these bands can't get in there and get the message across. And there are live platforms like things like YouTube and that, but they're inundated with music. You don't know where to look. There's so many things to look at.
Too much choice, yeah.
Yeah, too much choice. It's like the television now.
Yeah.
Right, back in the day, there wasn't enough choice, and so it's completely flipped on its side now. Now there's so much choice, everyone's confused. The internet, the information superhighway, has now become gridlocked with misinformation.
Yeah. Couldn't have said that better myself, mate. Yeah,
you'd have one person come up with a relatively good theory, and someone else will come up and make that theory look stupid by saying,
what about her usually? It's what about her, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what they do, don't they? They just say, "Oh, we're all about that." Well, that's invalidated that, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then you don't know what to believe anymore.
Well, that's the thing. 'Cause you have to. This is why at first, like often when anything happens, like politically, on either side, or whatever side, I just don't tend to take faith in much any of it, because, like you were saying, there is a lot of misinformation. So the key is to be able to cut through that and just try and get as honest journalism, as honest fact taking as possible. With the arts, I do believe there's total potential for change, but we have to find a way to make that happen more. We have to, I think, as an organised a collective, we should be campaigning to ensure that small music venues are increased, if anything, and we get more funding. Because if those bands are able to do that kind of thing again, it would make a bigger difference. And there is that. They just have to. We have to fight the tide all the time. It's very important.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to getting our events back on, mate.
Yeah, in live. Yeah, they will be.
Yeah. Our live events, obviously. Yeah.
Definitely, there will be. No, I mean, yeah. So Joe, where are you from? Are you from? You've been in Kingston as well, or like?
Yeah, New Malden. Yeah.
Oh, okay. New Malden, yeah. I was thinking about New Malden a lot recently. I was thinking I wouldn't mind because I'm trying to move fairly soon. I was thinking that's the place I wouldn't mind moving to, because they've got a lot of good venues. You've got Sing, you've got Glass House, you've got the place we used last year, the Royal Oak.
Yeah, that's around the corner to you, Nick, isn't it? Royal Oak. Not far.
Me, I'm living up by. I'm living down Villiers Road now.
Oh yeah. Oh okay.
So your mum lives in Royal Oak, doesn't she? Nearby there, is that right?
My mum still lives down Orme Road.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting venues around. Like, I mean, that's the thing. I think one of the things the lockdown has affected is that, and we do have to do everything we can to reverse that trend and help the small music venues as much as possible, and all arts venues. Anything for poetry. I want to organise some more like gatherings with like poets and other people. Like there's poetry night. Same thing. Nick, is that your phone?
No, it was my Xbox.
Was it?
I actually I bumped the button on the Xbox when I was reaching for my cigarette, and the tray came out.
Okay. But yeah, no, it has been really interesting. So now, I mean, we'll finish very soon. But thank you very much for coming, Joe. It's been very interesting.
Well, just in light of what you just said, Tristan, I remember Q saying something to me once. It was a quote from someone, and it was. Through history, there's been a common theme in revolutions being started by many little music communities and poetry groups starting, small ones that then form together and create a larger alliance.
Yeah.
And that can kickstart a revolution. So these venues are integral. It's integral that we have these spaces where we can form these alliances, you know.
That's great. I mean, I didn't know that in history there'd been well, I mean, I'm not familiar much with how the arts have been used positively in the further past. I know recently, but I don't know.
Well, people get together to play music and share ideas, you know, and then that can have a knock-on effect and then create through what's it called? The butterfly effect, you know?
Yeah. And of course, and the whole sort of causality thing of chain reactions from one thing to the other.
I think that's worked with XR, hasn't it? Quite well. It's worked with XR, I think. Music and musicians coming along to the stuff, bringing people along.
That's it, yeah.
But I mean, I'm not very sociable, so like I just go for direct action bit myself. You know what I mean?
Fair enough, mate. Yeah, you're getting involved, man. You know.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on board tonight, Joe. It's been great having you on.
Indeed, lovely to see you again, Joe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. See you. I've definitely got trousers on. Yeah.
Thank you for coming, Joe. And
I'll let you know when we broadcast this, Joe. Yeah.
Guys, we'll have a little post, chat now. But thanks so much for coming on board, Joe. And it was really interesting. We'll like to see you again soon. We'll chat to you more for sure.
Indeed, love you, loads.
Right, cheers.
Good luck with
Thanks, mate.
Too, mate.
Nice meeting you.
Take care, Joe.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye.